I am. Perfect. Welcome to the Sarpy County Board of Equalization meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 26, 2024. It's 3:00 p.m. Anyone wishing to speak during open public comment, if you'll check in with Kendra at the clerk's office, that would be great. The first 15 minutes of our board meetings are designated for individuals that want to address the board on topics not otherwise listed on the agenda. If there isn't anybody there, we'll just move on to the next item on the agenda. Please silence all cell phones. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the county boardroom. We have present today Commissioners Kelly, Klug, Warren, Burmeister. Commissioner Mixon is absent today, and we also have our county administrator, Bonnie Moore, our operations manager, Kendra Kaler. We have our county assessor, Dan Pittman, and our county treasurer, Jeff Mikesell. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 is public comment. Did we have anyone signed up? No. Okay, and seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to the consent equalization agenda. Would anyone like to see any items removed from the consent agenda, or if not, a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Warren. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 4, absent Mixon. Motion carried.
Item 6.1 is protest hearing, failure to file personal property return tabled from November 12, 2024 for Asthma and Allergy Center PC, parcel 010992839. I have Pat Sullivan, attorney. Haven't heard from anyone on that issue. Okay. I know that we had a little bit of a summary from county attorney's office. Does anyone have any, or is anyone here on behalf of Asthma Allergy Center PC? Anyone have any questions for Annie?
So just a question to legal and to Dan. You go past 20 new strip malls a week. How are we assured that everybody in all of those strip malls, it used to be a voluntary thing if you do personal property. Is there any way that we follow up on those or do anything with those as far as new ones?
Dan Pittman, County Assessor. I believe the question is, how do we know if there are tenants in strip malls?
Yeah, if there's a new business that's come into the area.
Well, the majority of the discoveries are made by the appraisers as they go out to do the reappraisal work, and they'll notify the personal property department that there are new businesses, and the personal property administrator does cruises through different publications like the newspaper to see grand openings for businesses and things like that. That's two of the methods of doing it.
And then letters are sent out?
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if they don't respond, I mean, what are the teeth that, that I open up a business in Gretna and don't file my personal property?
Well, what happens typically is small business owners will have a bookkeeper or an accountant that handles their books, and that person's aware of the filings they need. And those are the people that we usually don't hear from the actual taxpayer. We hear from the rep, and they'll come and they'll send in the forms, or they'll be the ones that tell us, hey, I was late, and then incur the penalties for that. But
Okay.
Mr. Sullivan, do you want to be heard on Asthma and Allergy Center?
Patrick Sullivan, 1413 South Washington Street, Suite 300. I'm going to ask the indulgence of the board to give me another week on this and continue this. I was out of town, got stuck in a storm, and I've been chasing my tail ever since getting back, and I just have not been able to confer with the client to do anything with it. So if you could do that. Otherwise, I don't really have much to say because I don't know enough about the situation to say.
You, 1 week enough, or?
1 week should be plenty.
Yeah. Somebody want to move to table
Yeah, I'll
for a
make a
week?
motion, we table this action for 1 week. I'm not sure what day that is. Is that 3 December?
December 3rd, yeah.
Third.
Third.
I'll second.
Yes, when I say that, I better make sure it's open for me too.
December 2nd?
What,
Not 3rd.
how about just
It's
you put
December
it back?
3rd.
Okay, so I'll make a motion, we table this action to the December 3rd meeting.
You're not going to be out of town again, right?
I'm just checking to see what's going on. Yeah, I got something going that day, but I'll make it work.
We want to do, we can slide it to the 10th.
10th.
If you slide it to the 10th, that would be
All right,
fantastic.
I'll amend my motion to table till the 10th of December.
I'll second the amended motion.
Motion to table till the 10th by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Klug. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 4, absent Mixon, motion
Much
carried.
appreciated.
Yes.
Item number 7 is an executive session we don't need today. We'll move on to item number 8. All agenda items having been addressed as published, the Board of Equalization is adjourned, and we'll move on to the Board of Commissioners. Welcome to the Sarpy County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 26, 2024. It's 3:07 p.m. We have present today Commissioners Kelly, Klug, Warren, and Burmeister. Commissioner Mixon is absent today. We also have our County Administrator, Bonnie Moore, and our Operations Manager, Kendra Kaler. Item number 3 is public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Okay, seeing nobody coming to the podium for public comment, we'll move on to item number 4, which is awards, proclamations, and presentations. Item 4.1 is Resolution 2024-337, recognize employees who have served Sarpy County and have reached milestone years of service from July 1, 2024 through December 31, 2024. It says Angie Burmeister, Chair. Was anybody going to speak on this topic, Bonnie?
Mary Davis, did you want to speak on this topic? Yes, this is a resolution to recognize those employees that have reached milestone years of service, 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years of service with the Sarpy County. And if you remember, we decided to change the way we did our presentations, and all awards have been delivered to the county departments for presentation to the employees by the elected official or department heads. So congratulations to those employees, and thank you for your service.
And we have a couple longtime members. I see Captain Richards has been here 35 years, and David Meisinger's been here 40 years. So lots of longtime great employees in Sarpy County, and pretty honored to work with all of them. So appreciate their years of service. Thanks, Mary. Thank you.
I'd ask, is there someone that got one of those awards that is here today that would stand and be recognized?
What about the fight song?
On behalf of the board, I got cookies.
Item number 5 is Commissioners, Administrators, Announcements, and Comments. We'll start with Commissioner Kelly.
I just,
This item was a resolution, so I think we need to make a vote on that.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Thank you. So, yep.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Warren.
second.
Second by Commissioner Klug was first, I think.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 4, nays none, absent Mixon, motion carried.
So we'll move on to announcements. Commissioner Kelly.
No, I just wanted to recognize the mayor of La Vista, Doug Kendrick's here today, and thanks for coming. Happy Thanksgiving.
I just want to wish everybody a happy and safe Thanksgiving.
No comment.
Bonnie.
No comment, thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 6, the consent commissioner's agenda. Anyone like to see any items removed from the consent agenda, or if not, a motion to approve?
Motion?
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Klug. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 4, nays none, absent Mixon, motion carried.
Item 7.1 is Resolution 2024-334, Implement GovWorks Comms Coach Pilot Proposal, replacing existing quality assurance services provided by Priority Dispatch Corporation, which will enable comprehensive quality assurance evaluations for 100% of 911 calls, as well as enable the capability to evaluate radio transmissions. Bill Muldoon, Emergency Communications Director, and Kimberly Cusack, Telephone Systems Manager.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Kimberly, and I work down in the 911 Center as the Technology Manager. And we are seeking board approval to implement software called CommCoach by GovWorks. It's replacing our existing quality assurance service that we pay for on a yearly basis. Priority Dispatch Quality Assurance does 100 calls a month for us for 911, just medical dispatching, where CommCoach can do all of the 911 calls, including the radio traffic for fire and police. And on top of that, we will be able to get real-time transcription of all 911 calls, administrative calls, and radio traffic, which will help with accuracy for not only us on, listening to the call, but actually getting the information out to the responding agencies as needed. We did not budget for this. However, we were given the opportunity to join a pilot program through GovWorks at a reduced cost of $22,000 a year. And if we do, if this is approved, then that $22,000 a year will be for the course of every contract annually. The price will never go up, which is a huge savings for us. Currently, we pay Priority Dispatch around $25,000 a year. And with that, we'll actually be able to reduce some other software costs later on. One of them will be our language line, because we'll be able to do language translations through this software real time, and actually do some text to 911 translations, which we do not have the access to do now. And we will be able to do all of QA on all of our 911 calls, which is a huge service. It's an artificial intelligence software that will do it automatically for us. We will have to put in our protocols into the system, and then the system will do the work for us, and then we'll have to review it to make sure. So, does anybody have any questions?
It's great to see the combination coming together to potentially save money. As we have the discount, are we part of a beta testing, or is this a totally finished product? Are we giving them input on how it could be improved as well?
It is a brand new product. We will be the 5th agency in Nebraska that is currently using it. It is like I said, it's a new product. However, it is implemented in several states, and so we will have input into the software, but we've seen it in action, and it's very, very robust. And we were actually at a demo last week for a whole different software, and they were touting how awesome this software was. When we saw it, we're like, wow, this can really be a game changer for us, money-wise and personnel-wise, just kind of honing in on some issues that we don't know is there because we're not able to do quality assurance on every call.
Thank you.
So on the subscription cost, you said it was going to be fixed at $22,000 indefinitely?
$22,000, yep, for as long as, every year, as long as they own the product, that we'll have the $22,000.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
that's a huge savings for us.
So, I mean, you don't give a $78,000 product away for
Yes.
22 without a hook here. So what's the hook? They want to try to sell us other software in the future? Or?
I don't think so. He does have different modules within the software, and we'll be given those for free. There'll be no extra cost for the software. It's a cloud-based software. We won't have to pay for storage, and the retention time is exactly what we tell them to be. So there'll be no hidden costs after the $22,000.
Okay, well, I always worry that if a deal sounds too good
I know,
to be
I was
true,
waiting for the catch, and I went after him a little bit, so.
All right. Well, you know, if that changes, will you just let us know? Because it could change.
Yeah, it's a good change.
I mean, I could see like 5 years or some kind of a fixed period of time, but just say indefinitely, boy,
And I've worked with this gentleman who founded the company for several years on different products, and he has always given me exactly what he has told
Okay,
us.
good enough for me. Thanks.
And the AI portion, that will like auto-generate something and then that'll be reviewed?
Yeah, so we'll have to put our protocols in. So there'll be a lot of front end work that needs to be done by our quality assurance coordinator. And she'll put in the protocols and the call guides, exactly how we want them to be done. And then they'll use the AI technology to listen to the call and to match them up with those protocols to make sure that they're correct. And that will also match up with our priority dispatch Pro QA, which we do right now on all medical calls to make sure that we're saying the right things and we're doing the right things and all the same rules apply. This will just go hand in hand with anything that's not medical. So, and then it will also do some different versions of, if you can say one person, like I want to do all the calls for one employee or all the calls on all the one shift, and it'll go by personality. It'll see if like you're having a bad day or if you're rude to a customer. There's just a lot of different features that you can put into it that it'll automatically find. It'll learn their voices, which is interesting.
Are there SLAs for uptime?
Say that again?
Service level agreements for?
I don't believe so, but they said that there is a 2% downtime, but that is very rare. They said it could be potentially a 2%.
And if we hit that 2% time where it goes down, is there any local hardware and software that will get us through that time?
No, we would lose the the transcription, but it will catch up and later on pull the data from CAD and from our recording system to catch up.
Okay.
So the downtime would be very minimal for us and very non-impacting to us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Warren. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 4, absent Mixon, motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Guys, appreciate it. Item 8.1 is Sarpy County and City's Wastewater Agency Quarterly Update. Dan Hoynes, Wastewater Agency Director.
I think there's enough there, Bonnie. If there's not, I got a couple of extras. So thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dan Hoynes, Sarpy County Cities and Wastewater Agency, 8901 South 154th Street, Sarpy County, Nebraska. So that's for you, Commissioner Warren. With me today, I've got some of you very familiar with project engineer Jeff Thompson is here, but also a new introduction to the board, Mark Setow. Mark, if you could stand up. Won't make you do the fight song. Mark's about a month into being appointed the agency treasurer. It's good to have him on board. He's really starting to acclimate and understand. And we were meeting this morning, and he said, "This is a pretty complex project." I said, yeah, there are a lot of moving parts, but he's catching on really well. And I just thought it would be important to get him in front of the board and allow him to see that. So, the age where I have to take my glasses off to pull up what I need to get right. So there we go. So Bondi was kind enough to provide me a series of questions, I think 8 of them, that she thought may have value in briefing the board and understanding what we have relationship-wise and as an agency going through. And so I really formatted the presentation along those, but before I get into that, I thought it was important to let the board know that last Wednesday, the agency board passed on a 6-0 vote an updated agency master plan. Now, that's pretty significant in terms of moving forward. When you think in terms of we started in 2017-18, and we put some lines on a paper. This really started about last spring with a tech committee that Jeff led of a lot of the engineers. It went through multiple iterations and reviews at tech, then went to the administrators for review and discussion, and back to tech committee to look at. This is an important document. The key importance of this is, Madam Chair and board members, is this really defines the intent of what the agency sees as future sewer in our jurisdiction. I don't know if my mouse works. Yeah, it does. So what we always refer to as Phase 1A is this yellow line that really traverses from the Springfield plant on the southern edge all the way east over to the Papio wastewater treatment facility. It also has a leg that goes north-south from effectively the data centers down to the Springfield plant. All in all, Madam Chair and board members, that's about 42 miles of sewer pipe that's in the ground today. Talk later, I don't want to spoiler alert about the commissioning is going to happen. Jeff did present to the agency board that it's going to be commissioned on time and under budget by the end of this year, and that the board also did approve a connection agreement with the city of Springfield, so they will be the very first live users at some point very near or shortly after January 1st. There's some measurements we're working with Springfield on. But I wanted to start with this before I got into Bonnie's questions, because we're going to talk a lot today, I think at least, about the blue lines, Phase 1B. Does this map look familiar, Commissioner? Baseline now. It survived the test of time. The blue lines, Phase 1B, little leg over here, would be if the agency had funding, that's what we would build next, would be the blue lines, followed by the green lines, the big line that goes out here to Gretna, and then there's some green lines, colorblind here, but over in the Bellevue area. To scale that for you, the Phase 1B and Phase 2 lines are about 46 miles of pipe in the ground, so a little bit larger than the project that we're just completing. We're going to talk some about funding and some other things today, but I really wanted you, what we're not going to have a lot of discussion because they're really only designated as future lines, the red. That's about an additional 17 miles. So when you go all in on the project, you get about 105 miles of sewer pipe that we believe we need in the ground. I will tell you this, the only certain thing about this project is change and timing. But I think there was a lot of work, a lot of discussion to get to a 6-0 vote saying that this map tells you two things. This is predominantly the location where these lines will be. Again, a tech committee review, they aligned them with basins of 500 to 1,000 acres. They aligned them with street intersections, some things that weren't done initially in the 2017-18 work. So it's a little bit more science and less art. So the actual location and the phasing that comes in, we'll talk a little bit more about phasing. So I'd like to pause there and see if there's any questions on the maps. And for each one of these, I think it would be valuable for me and maybe for you if I just open it up for questions after each slide. I think I have 8 of them to scale it.
And just to clarify, you said there's no date on the future lines.
No date on the red. And it's really, we think, Commissioner, it's going to be development driven. Most of us have been in this for a while, understand that. There could be a really good development come in there. And the member would first have to say, I want it, then they would work with us and we would try to get that line built.
The only thing with development driven, it's like roads.
Yeah, oh, well.
By the time the development comes along and wants it, then you're 2-3 years out from getting it in, so.
Have a heavy lift there. Yeah, it's going to have to follow, the other infrastructure, certainly roads. are
And so
important.
those other ones are not funded yet. So process-wise, is that just the agency works on the funding and then that gets approved through all the entities, or how, just a brief?
I think we may have value, because I'm talking about funding a little bit from Bonnie's question, so I'll pause each one. If I don't get that, if you come back at the end, we'll kind of clean it up. But I would like to get into Bonnie's question. They're very good questions. So the first question that she asked was, how has the projected flow revenue for this year compared to the actual flow revenue for this year? Important to know, the agency's not accepted any wastewater flow. We've not made the connection to wastewater, so subsequently, we have no flow revenue from this year. It is projected, I've got some numbers here later, to start collecting on January 1st. And I think we've got, from the year would be $425,000 programmed in flow coming in. Do I need somebody to help bail me out already, Don? Or?
I'm good.
Okay.
I got kicked offline. I need them to log me.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought maybe I was missing something.
Talking about.
So no flow revenue from sewer. Now we do, there is flow, and this is, boy, I'm learning engineering speak vernacular. There is flow through the cold water blowdown system. It's been coming from Gemini since February of '24. However, that's not a flow rate-based charge. Gemini pays for actual O&M expenses of that system. So there are two lines running north-south along Highway 50. One is this blowdown water used exclusively at this point by Facebook. They built it. They paid for it, $13 million. That was a requirement of the agency. And they have to pay for the O&M on it. Now, if others hook in, there would be a pro rata share of future users into that, but we have not, I think the key point here, collected anything in terms of flow from wastewater. It's very near to us. What flow I think we have invoiced and been paid from February 24 until this fall, somewhere around $32,000. There's another $132. They're also required to make payments for capital costs, future capital costs on that line. So that CWB line is pretty well covered. Facebook, we make the rules and they pay us for that. But again, no other. So I'll pause there. Questions on the flows?
Dan, just so we're clear, so Corolla did a rate study. So what was that rate study based upon?
The rate study was based upon the what we were seeing come through the Sarpy County line at the time, and the Springfield line is what we base that on.
And were any of those revenues collected by the agency?
No.
Okay.
No, we have not collected any flow revenues. So any more questions on the flows and our revenues here, Madam Chair or board members? Okay, moving on here to the next question. What was the projected connection fees revenue for this year compared to the actual connection fees collected for this year? So the projected for the current year, and we're July 1, June 30, fiscal year, identical with the county. The projected is 1326644. As of 11/21, we've collected 26 and change. I've got another slide that will kind of expand onto the 5-year projections coming in there, but I think before we get to that, I want to say, when I say projected, early on there were no projections. The projections align with our rate study. And so our projection is what we need to maintain debt service above the debt coverage ratio. So that's projected, and we did do that in the rate study moving forward. So I'll go ahead and slide to that one, Madam Chair. And so this was the next question. Please provide the future 5-year projection on connection fee revenues. You can see early on we didn't have a rate study. We were collecting pretty significant, some of these Facebook and such. You can see in these early years with no projections. But the rate study, which was adopted in April of this year, of '24, took it out 10 years. And so our debt service requirements, again, this year's 1326, 17, 3438. So over the next 5 years, we need to generate a little over $12 million to meet our debt service requirements. Historically, the previous 4 years, we've collected $17.6 million without ever flushing a toilet. The future revenues, this is when a development makes an application, they do it in one of two areas, either an urban development zone or urban reserve zone. The development zones where we said, this is where we want you to grow, the agency members. Phase 1A, basically. So they pay 50% of the per acre upon platting. I will give Oakleaf as an example. It's going right now. And it'll hook on soon. Oakleaf paid 50% of the entire fee up front. And then the remainder 50% is paid as the lots or acres develop. Same rate, 28,000 acre, but it just comes in at different increments as development. So they get to kind of pay as you go if you're in the UDZ, because that's what we plan. The future revenue lines I have there for the approved plats that we have within the agency jurisdiction, if they all pulled a building permit tomorrow, we'd have $9.5 million more dollars. That's approved. We're just waiting for them to come in. Now, that could happen realistically in the next 2 or 3 years. It could be 15 years. We don't know. But it is an account receivable on the agency connection fee books, and we're already getting some of them. You know, they come in at different increments. But the book balance out there is 9.5, but the money in the bank is 17.6. The total of the 17.6, that is 27.2 on the books with 17.6 in the bank. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Questions?
Just a quick question. So I think I understood, but never sure on these numbers. So what you said is the projections, those are the numbers that meet the debt service on the WIFIA loan, is that right?
Well, both loans. We got
Both
SRF,
loans, okay.
all of our loans. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
You're backing both of them. So yes. Good question.
And,
I've got a chart here in a slide or two that
Okay.
we'll go over.
okay, perfect.
But yes, I didn't mean to cut you off, ma'am.
I was just trying to make sure I understood that number
Yes.
is the one, and the totals don't matter for that, right? Do you have to make it each year? I mean,
Yes.
the totals are great. I just want to make sure I understand.
Well, yeah, it gets to be a bit of verbiage key when we talk about how are you going to pay for Gretna and how are you going to get in there. And so, again, I've done my best to try and give you, a high-level picture, and we can talk about some of those variables. But
is
yes,
helpful.
so I think kind of the important thing to me, or at least what I watch, one of the things I've asked Mark to work on, too, is to create a development map where at least I, and frankly anybody involved, can toggle on to the area and see that developed and that paid. Make it that simple. So anybody involved in this project can come in and see. That way we're going to get a better trend and see how it's going. So
Great.
Question around obviously it's good to see the projected being very conservative, at least appears to be at this point. When we look at 2024 to 25, projected to collected, that's good. And the numbers continue to go up on the projected side, but on the collected side, while the numbers are large right now, it appears that at least over the last 2 years, it's starting to trend down. Is that purely based, I'm assuming the numbers and projected is based purely on demand, expected demand.
yes, yes, it is, Commissioner.
Is demand still trending in the right direction?
The numbers tell me it is, but again, what the economy does, I think that's anybody's guess. I think, what's your comfort level in a trend or a pattern, is generally 3 to 5 years. We've averaged a little over 4 million in those years coming in. I think something bad would have to happen not to hit 4 million. And once we get into a little bit more, when we talk about what's next for the agency and what we should do, I think creating certainty for the development community. Do you have something on?
Keep talking.
No, I'm done. I don't want to keep you all day.
So if you look at the 2026, 2027, and then 2027, 2028, that's doubling basically. So what is triggering that projection to double? What is the assumption there?
The rate study went with lower payments early, the first couple of years, and then they made it fit within the model to pay the whole thing. So just you pay less early and then go up, assuming that development, we would be able to be in a much better position, have higher development fees, allows us some footing.
But that's repayment of the debt. So this
Right.
is connection fee revenue projection. So what's the assumption that's causing that projection to double between those 2 fiscal years?
I always want to be right when I answer, so if you give
No, you
me,
don't.
yes, I do, very
So
much
at that
so.
point in time, you're taking flow,
Right,
and you're also issuing permits.
correct, and hopefully new developments. I think it may help a little, so I'll let you look under the hood. The entire, I actually shared this with you folks in May, and I'm going to share it again with you today. The number of acres to develop in our jurisdiction, the agency's jurisdiction, will generate $621 million if it all came in today. If it all came in today. Now, that's not realistic, right? Timing's a real problem for us, by the way. If you built Phase 1A and 2, at today's construction, that's $250 million. So you got about a third, a little more than a third, if the math all came in. So I'm not sure if that's where your question was going in terms, can you afford to pay for these lines if it all came in tomorrow?
No, that's not what I'm asking, and
Okay.
I can ask you offline, Dan. I'm just wondering what assumption is being made about the connection fee revenue that's causing that projection to double over those 2 fiscal years.
It's in the rate study, and I actually have a copy, but I'd probably be better use for our time if we did it offline.
And that's fine, and I apologize. I just got a copy of this, otherwise I would have asked you offline.
Yeah, it's
Thank
I
you.
mean, yeah, it's significant. It went up, and it continues to go up, but it also, the development, you assume, is going to continue to go up.
I think one of the assumptions going into it is that, obviously in 21 through 24, we didn't have pipe in the ground. So it's hard to project revenue when you don't even have the ability to flow it. And so I think the reason you see that escalation, at least in my mind, is because now that we have the infrastructure in place, the flows will occur and the projected revenues will come in. I mean, if there's zero growth development, we're still going to have revenue from all the data centers that are going to be flowing millions of gallons of water through those pipes over the coming years. But
Right, and this is just connection fees, though, this particular
Right,
slide.
yeah. Yeah, and those are separate and distinct. So I'm going to move on because I think we're kind of maybe getting there.
yeah, well, but we'll take, I think, if you could maybe follow up with.
100%. Yep. I'll get with you, Bonnie, and we'll walk through the escalation of the payments. It's a fair question. Third question, what is the projected closeout date for the project? What's the day we'll take flow? Excuse me. Phase 1A connected the end of December. We will accept flow the very next day. Substantial completion is 12/31/25. Question 4, what is the projected remainder of WIFIA funds? The projected remaining WIFIA funds at substantial completion and closeout after it's all done is a little over $20 million sitting there. And so the next question, that one's pretty straightforward. I think this one may stimulate some discussion. The agency, what is the proposal for using the unspent WIFIA? The agency will be recommending a scope change to complete the design, engineering, and easements, often referred to DPE, for Phase 1B and Phase 2 of the agency master plan. I've got another map here, I think, up next.
Blue lines, blue and green.
So again, Kleenex or something? Yes, I'll just swallow, I'm good. My apologies. Yeah, so the breakdown on that is the design and permitting. I'm going to go ahead and, we can toggle back and forth because these are just interrelated. This is a really visual map for me. Okay, so I'll talk about those numbers, and they're on here if you add them up. We've talked about this is Phase 1A, right? Finished at the end of this year. Oh, thank you. You're a gentleman. Thank you.
I haven't used that one yet.
That makes me feel better. You guys are just taking care of me here. Should have never left.
Oh, there will be a
There'll be an invoice in the.
Yeah, okay, all right. Trying to convince you we got the money to pay that invoice. So the yellow line we talked about, all right? So that's, at this point, deliveries, 120, 125 million for this first phase line. So here, the blue lines here that we're talking about again, up in Papillion, Springfield, and Bellevue, that's the phase 1B. But the agency's proposing that we do more than just design permit and gain the easements for the blue. We're suggesting that additional WIFIA money be used to do DPE. And again, design permitting is one portion. Actually gaining the easement is part of our proposal. That would be another $6 million. So it's about a 12 to 18 month process. But at completion, then we would have certainty and we would own the easements for everything you see in blue and green on here. And I think that is the next critical phase for the agency. Whether we spend WIFIA money or we don't, I will just tell you that's what's next for us. We've been holding that and discussing that and really just trying to get our feet underneath us, but we're pretty confident that's going to be a recommendation. Of course, certainly work with Bonnie first. You folks are the backstoppers, the step-inners, to make sure that you're going to be okay with that. If you're not, then we'll have to find a different source. But that would be the direct question was, what is the recommendation for that $20 million? And it would be use 13.6 to go do design permitting and get easements for blue and green. So I'll pause there, Madam Chair and Board, and see if you have any questions or comments on that.
So question around, and don't get me wrong, I want to see this succeed. I've always wanted to see this succeed.
I'm a hard guy to offend.
To backstop it
Commissioner.
accordingly.
Yeah.
The $20 million that's left over, I mean, technically, there's still $20 million from the WIFIA loan, but how much over budget? Because 1A was originally supposed to be, around $70 million?
I've got a file for that too. Not in this one, but 70 went to 130.
And ended up at, I'm sorry, 130 million, right? Mm-hmm. So we're still $60 million over budget on the project as it sits today, right? And that's where the question of the financials really comes in to create some clarity, at least I think for this board, to ensure that if we do say we're going to backstop it further, that it makes absolute financial sense to do so. And I realize that there needs to be risk for the reward, but that's pretty solid overrun on costs.
So can I just jump in here on that?
Sure.
I mean, if you've ever bought a financial instrument or a mutual fund or a stock, they always say past performance doesn't guarantee future results. And to just say we had huge cost overruns without telling the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, is unfair. I mean, we went through a major pandemic, which shut down the economy, which shut down the supply lines, which made all what I would have considered very sound estimates increased by a magnitude of order. But it wasn't just the sewer agency that experienced this. It was all kinds of commerce and economic factors across the board. So if we're looking for assurance from the sewer agency that we can, take all the risk out of these projections, you just can't do that. I mean, anybody with a fiduciary responsibility would be performing malpractice to make those kind of guarantees because they just don't exist. Nobody has a crystal ball and can read the future. But I think the point is that $20 million is not going to serve anybody's purpose in Sarpy County if it's sitting in the bank being unused. If we want to move this project to the next level, to at least get it to the point where it's shovel ready, so if federal funding appeared, I think we need to think as a board about the pros and cons of obligating that remaining money in the WIFIA loan, and by the way, I would point out there is no guarantee that the loan will be repurposed that will allow us to do that. However, the indications are that with the financial data that would be submitted with the application, it most likely could be approved.
Yeah, I don't want the money to just sit in the bank. I think if we don't use it, it should pay off the debt. And just as a side, I feel like I'm doing my fiduciary responsibility by asking these questions.
No, that's fine, but I mean, I'm just saying it's unfair to say we had huge cost overruns because that doesn't tell the whole story. It certainly doesn't. There were reasons for those. It was not malfeasance or bad productions or, any kind of.
Never suggested it was.
Okay.
Well, I would, and I always appreciate your questions, Commissioner. There were some bad projections, but it's more than a semantical difference when you talk to an engineer and they give you an opinion of probable cost. They do their best. But again, you're talking 2018-19. Commissioner Kelly just talked about some of the, world events that took place. But I just put this together, I think, because I anticipated this question, that here's really how we got there. It was an OPC, HDR. And it was off, but it wasn't the driving cost. The driving cost was the economy changing in those periods of time. And I'd certainly pass this on and give it to you. I didn't even know if we'd use it, so I didn't put it in the PowerPoint. It just, the timeline there, there were multiple meetings that were conducted about why did this go over. Some of you were in this room with HDR and Ernst Young and some other people trying to figure out that eventually ended up in the agency board only approved a portion to start with, and the direction was go find additional funding. And in that time, we had about $5 million worth of scope change, about $10 million worth of, a $10 million state grant, which took the 60 to 45. That's how we got to the ask. Now, I want to be very, above all, transparent. That WIFI alone is $17.9 million worth of contingency. Now, that loan's probably one of the most page-turned reviewed loans that I've been involved with in government. There was a lot of caution, not just from our side, but even from the WIFIA folks who said, get a big contingency. We don't know what this is dealing with. And so that's why that's the lion's share, Commissioner, of the $20 million contingent, 17.9 in contingency and about 1.8 in cost underruns actually on the project. And that's what got us to 20. So it was very intentional to get a high contingency that a lot of people reviewed and signed off on. And I credit to both Hawkins and the management team. I've been involved, I don't know about other people, I'll speak for myself, where if there's a contingency, they'll find a way to spend it. Totally different approach from the Hawkins folks in this team, because the last thing we wanted to do was come back before anybody to finish phase 1A and say we need $17 million more dollars. So again, always open to the discussion and the feedback there, Dave. Okay, let's go from there. Current slide. So this is a simple, but there's a lot here. You can see I've submitted a couple of numbers to you here. If you add all of the DPEs up, you're going to come up with the $13.67 million. If you add this is not an opinion of probable cost, big difference today. This is, as you can see, based on construction cost pricing, today's dollars from Hawkins. People out there doing it, saying this is what it would cost you if you were going to go build Gretna today. It's $131 million to go build that line out to Gretna. It's 19.8 to build this leg of phase 1. You see the number. You get where we're at here. But I think this map's in my office. I'm like, that's an important map. So any questions on what this map's telling us or the agency recommendation on DPE?
Just one question. So to use the contingency, does WIFIA have to approve?
We have to do a scope change.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to do a scope change. And I think that's just good public policy, and it keeps all the members, with agreement. And so there was actually a resolution passed, I think, by the agency board. I don't know if the county board did in June.
I think it was just the agency.
Yeah, just the agency that authorized us to begin negotiations with WIFIA to expand the scope to do this, but because, frankly, the county had some concerns, I'm pretty new at it. I want to do the right thing. I think everybody does. We have not contacted them. And when we do, I'll do it by and through with Bonnie in coordination to make that request, to make sure the backstopper is at the table in the discussions, understanding what we're asking and what they're approving. We've intentionally delayed it to get it right,
So the agency board's already approved
to make the ask.
To make the
It
ask.
said it's got to come back. They said, you're not signing off on anything. Go see if they'll let us do it. And if they'll let us do it, we then would have to modify the loan, which would come back to both the county board and the agency board. But we have not even made the ask, just out of respect of the process.
Just trying to understand, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, you're going to get a green vote on it if that's where we go. Another important, what's the projected cost for building the trunk line to Gretna? What's the plan? It's 136 DPE, you saw that. Plan for funding the line. The agency rate model is designed to use future connection fees to build new lines. Projected construction cost, $2024 for phase 1B and 2 is $251 million. Projected connection fee revenue within the agency jurisdiction is $621 million. I referenced that earlier, and then here's the map that I shared with you in May. It shows the agency jurisdiction. I mentioned urban development zone. These are areas that we're ready to flow to today or here in a month. They really get it by right. They go to their city government or county government and they hook in and they write us a check and nothing further is needed. If you want to develop out in this UDZ, there's a couple of hoops, either boundary adjustments or other things. And Gretna's went through it over here a couple of different times. But if all of that could be complete today, you got potential $621 million and the liability, if you will, of 250. Now that doesn't include those future lines either. So it's a kind of a grow as you can. And I will say this, timing's against us. I kind of advanced myself ahead when we come in, but we'll talk about this because I think it applies. Does the agency project that it will need to pull funds from the NDE and or WIFIA reserve to pay debt payments? No, the rate study approved in April was designed to cash flow. See, we're high because we got money in the bank. But this has always been the pinch point right here. Always been, that's just above the debt service requirements. But I've already had conversations with Mark and Corolla, who's done it, that as we have extra collections, we're going to be proposing restrictions through the budget to assure that we get comfortably above the 1.1 at all times before we ever get to 2031, which is 5 years out there. But it's kind of worst case. I want to go back to the Gretna thing because
Before you do that, never mind.
No, go ahead, Commissioner.
Does that, if you expend the 20 million remaining, if the sewer agency expends the 20 million in WIFIA, does it change those lines you just showed us for the?
No, the boundaries never change unless the members say they change.
No, the number graph, the very
the debt
last line.
servicing line.
Is that graph based on the full, including the 20 million that remains being spent?
Yes. This entire pro forma is based on spending the full WIFIA loan. Thank you.
That was my question.
Yep, thank you, sir. Yeah, I should have gotten that in there. I want to go back to Gretna because I know it's important to many of us in here, and it's really, I've said frequently, I kind of feel sorry for Gretna. They're way out there, and, they thought initially they could, flow with their own system, but they're growing so fast they can't, that they need us. And so they really need that line so much to the extent that they've had to come twice in the last year and ask for boundary adjustments to bump out. And what that did was the difference. I talked about UDZ's 50%, and then as you hook on, you do a boundary adjustment day one, 100% of those $28,000 per acre is due. The day you find, that's happened twice to Gretna developments recently, and there's no real, I would say, realistic plan to get them the sewer when they need it right now, because we are not going to generate $621 million, phase 1B, and therein lies the importance of the mouse is messed up here. lies the importance of some future work we're going to have to do. I'm not up on there. Go this way. I'm just going to keep moving because this went way longer than I'm sure anybody wanted it to. But I do want to be respectful of your questions. Okay, this is the last question, I think. To date, how much has Sarpy County paid to the agency, including any connection fees paid? So initially, it kind of started out, it was $250,000, it's like my first year here. Then it was $1 million, the second year I was here. The agency paid that $1 million back. The county gave that initial $250 as seed money, said you don't have to pay it back. They've generated $8.2 million in connection fees to date through November 21st. They paid over $1 million in pilot, and the ARPA contribution of almost $7 million. So the county has $16 million into the project. So I had Mark do some research for me and had him do the obligatory pie chart. Agency member contributions since inception, $30 million, $500. And here's the breakdown, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So the county's well over half of the contributions, but I think it's important to note that it's hard cash. Okay, biased, I'll say it, Papillion's giving pilot money that's actually north of the ridgeline. And they've given $1 million plus in that, and they've got a lot of connection fees. Here's the Gretna. So they've given $1.7 million, and that's those two developments that I talked about. But our first line of defense is always this: pay your debt first. We don't care where the money comes from, right? And that's what we've had to tell Mayor Evans and Paula. Look, we're going to work with you on the development, but I can't promise to build you anything until I know I can pay this debt on this first line. Now, if it happens fast, we're all going to be happy, right? The importance here is now that we got the master plan done, we have the Springfield connection agreement done, and I think we're well on our way to getting the Sarpy connection agreement resolved. Along with DPE, we need to have it's going to be an elongated discussion on pioneering and reimbursement that would allow either the developer or the city to say, I'm going to go ahead and build that line now because I need it, but I have to be paid back, in order to take that risk. I don't stand before you with that answer today, but I stand before you with 30 years of experience watching how those systems have been built, using that very reimbursement. The uniqueness here is generally you got one city, one developer. Now you have one developer, 5 cities, and a county government that have to get there. But I think we've actually solved more difficult problems. That really does kind of conclude what I have here for you. I've got some other stuff, but hopefully it's kind of putting in arena. Thank you, Bonnie, for the questions. I don't always know what questions you have, although we talk a lot. You've got a better handle on what these people need. So any questions?
Additional questions for Dan?
No, just a couple of comments, Dan. The two big asks are always difficult. What's it going to cost? Mm-hmm. You make projections and you hope you can stick with them, but costs go up because things happen in markets. The question that was asked of this at the very beginning was, what would the cost be if we didn't do it? And that's no answer to that either, because you don't know what you lose by doing it. I'm really encouraged when I look at your projections out there that they're very close. In fact, there's a couple of times that it's going to be questionable about can you make the payments, although it can be done. We're government. We're not to do things for profit, and we're to stay as close to expenses as we possibly can with what we charge taxpayers in development. The keys to any sewer project, and I've done one, is number one, the pipe in the ground, the cost. That's the big factor. The second thing is user connections, because that's when you start to see that 50% return that matches your initial developer cost.
That $9 million, that column.
But the big element is once users are connected and they start to flow, that's where the money is seen. And I've told you that since the beginning. You got to get users online, not just connected, but you have to have them using, because that's what generates money. I was sitting there thinking it'd be interesting to go back and look at the Sarpy County industrial sewer. What expense do we have in that from the beginning, and how much money has been made over time?
I think most all of those systems have paid for themselves.
Yeah,
And then
same
some.
thing. Oh, yeah, they pay for themselves, but it's amazing how fast they pay for themselves.
Yeah, and I was working with Mark just this morning, and keep in mind, we've struggled some, and be very transparent with you up here. You know, Mark's our fourth treasurer this year. Right? I told him he can't quit. But, you know, I was just briefing with him this morning and on rate revenues, Jim. And he was showing me at least this first year, and I don't know if that's the 6 months, you know, is $425,000. But then it's going to ratchet up. We know that coming in.
It gets moving pretty quick.
Any other questions for Dan?
I apologize. I'm
Thanks
the
for
sewer
coming
guy.
out. Yeah, the format was helpful, I think, because it's a lot of information. It's hard to.
But again, Bonnie, she's been really good to work with, and you know, it's said you've got 6 members that are all paid to represent self-interest. But
Dan, what is your best guess, though, for the agency to make a decision on the DP&E, and when will the county be involved?
you know, that's something I'd like to talk to Bonnie about moving forward. I don't want to make suppositions about what her thoughts are on it, but I certainly am going to work with her, and we've had preliminary discussions. But
well, just for broad planning purposes, is that something that we'll see in this budget cycle?
Yeah, I would hope, because the budget cycle is June.
Okay.
I hope we have a decision before then, because I think we're at a point where, and we can make multiple decisions, you know, at a time that complement each other, that don't compete with each other, and getting that master plan was huge. I mean, it was.
I mean, just from my standpoint, kind of have a foot in both worlds, but I've always viewed this job as, you know, if I'm doing my job good, I'm going to hand the keys over to a city at some point, because they're going to grow out, right? And the county's going to shrink. So, I mean, I've always looked at this kind of project as the reason you have a county board, because somebody has to be looking at the greater good, not just what's inside my little cone of influence or importance. And I'm not criticizing the city saying that they do that. That's exactly what they should do. But we need somebody looking at the greater picture, you know, to connect all the dots together and do what's best, you know, not for this city or that city or the county, but for everybody. And that's hard to do. But I think, you know, your leadership has been helpful in trying to make that happen. I just remember in 2017 when Mayor Black and a few others, I think Mayor Kendig and we all went down to testify. And I'll never forget, one of the state senators pulled me aside and goes, "Are you sure you know what you guys are asking for here?" And I had no idea at the time when he said that what he meant, but what he meant was herding cats can be pretty hard sometimes, you know. So you're going to put a bunch of basically different objectives and goals, people with different mindsets and thoughts and approaches, and put them together and try to agree them on the one way to get it done. That's a difficult task, even on a great day. So
we certainly have personalities, 7 counting mine, that come in, but it's been a blessing and a pleasure. I'll just say that. They defend themselves, and there's conflict, but they all want the project to work. And they know it's in all of our best interest. And at the end, I can't think, nobody's tried to jettison the project one time that I've sensed, but it's like, let's find the mutually agreed upon solution.
Well, and you know, I would also say that even though it seems like I give Commissioner Klug a hard time, I appreciate his questions, because those are the exact kind of questions that he has a responsibility, and this board has a responsibility to ask. But you know, I'm probably a little bit more of a risk taker than most people. But no, those are great questions, and we owe great answers to them. So appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Dan.
Dan.
I noticed on that first map, you have the word ridge line written in there. That is a copyrighted term. Yeah, yeah.
Item number 9.1 is an executive session for a legal matter.
For the protection of the public interest, I move that we go into executive session to discuss a legal matter.
There a second?
Second.
Motion to go into executive session for a legal matter by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Kelly. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 4, absent Mixon, motion carried.
Is this on the county?
4:06, we went into executive session where our discussion was restricted to a legal matter. I need a motion to return to regular session.
Second.
Motion to return to regular session by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Klug. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 4, absent Mixon, motion carried.
All agenda items having been addressed as published, the Board of Commissioners is adjourned.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving, you guys.
You too, take it easy.